Hey guys, so in today's video I'm going to be going over how Python will store information for us within a variable and how to use an f-string to concatenate an integer plus a string. So I'll begin with what a variable is in Python. A variable in Python must start with a letter or an underscore. And for those that do not know, an underscore is this symbol right here. It's the symbol next to the plus sign and you hold shift and press it. It's like a dash, but lower. So with Python, you can either use an uppercase or a lowercase to begin a variable. And as you'll see, these two greetings, although they're the same word, they're actually two different variables to Python. Now in Python, you will not assign a variable to the variable, but you will bind it. Think of them as being bound to each other, and they can always be rebound to another integer or a string. So in this example, I already have it pre-typed out. Python will read the variable greeting different from the variable greeting. And what I mean by this is this greeting will obviously be printed out and it'll print out hello, and then this greeting will print out hi. So we'll go ahead and run this. As you can see, both of these greetings, although they're the same word in English, they're seen as different variables within Python, and they both have different values. Now in Python, whenever you come across like a random word or something or a piece of code, sometimes you'll notice code that's written as type underscore random path to x equals whatever. Generally, the individual that wrote the code itself assigned this phrase or saying to the string value. And I apologize, but I meant bound. They were bound. So just remember, if I say assigned, I actually mean bound. But essentially this bound the value of this string right here to the variable itself. Now a variable, the point I was making is that a variable can be written as like anything that you could almost think of except for a number. So you can always create a random variable like number 1 or number 2. That actually kind of tricked me up when I first began coding in Python. I didn't quite understand that variables could be assigned or even come up with anything else. So when I saw tutorials and people were writing like today's day is or today's date, I didn't actually understand where today's date was coming from. I assumed that was part of one of the packages that they were coding in. So just know when you have a saying or a phrase and it has the equal sign, generally that's the variable that is being bound to either an integer like this or a string like this. Now, if to tell the difference between a string and a variable, usually strings will begin with a double parentheses or quotations right here, or they could even have single quotations. So that's just something to remember and how to differentiate a string from a integer. And if you need to, you can always type in print type, and then we'll go ahead and enter the greeting variable, and then what will happen, is Python will return to us that the class is a string. And likewise, if I was to do it with number 2, so for this example, print number 2, and then we'll go print type number 2, you'll see that we print out the class is an integer, and it's printing out 2 because it's the integer of 2. So just remember that the value is being bound to the variable, which is this. This is an integer, and likewise this is a string. Okay, so to go ahead and kind of give some more examples as to the differences between the variables and the string and the integer, I'll go ahead and write just kind of a random saying. So let's go ahead and create a new string. So let's assign greeting to something else. We'll say greeting equals hello. Oops. How are you today? I'm pleased to meet you. And my name is blank. We'll leave that open, and then we'll do name. So name's going to be the variable, and we're going to assign it a string, and we'll say Doug. Now, Doug is bound to the variable name, and then the greeting is bound to the word greeting. And we'll go ahead and print this out. So we'll print greeting, the variable greeting, and we'll concatenate it with name. And then let's also do this. So we'll have a space. And let's go ahead and run it. And what we get is, hello, how are you today? I'm pleased to meet you. My name is Doug. Now let's actually get rid of that. So it reads a little bit better. But essentially in Python, you can concatenate two strings together. So whenever you're working with variables, just remember that two strings will be able to be concatenated and can have an output of whatever the phrase is that you're typing. So now that you know a little bit about how to concatenate two strings together, I'll go ahead and show you how you can concatenate an integer and a string with an f string. And I'll show you what I mean. But to begin, I'll kind of show you why you won't be able to. Python essentially just won't be able to concatenate a string and an integer. So with this statement, I'll go ahead and say there are a total of 27 tacos to be eaten. So with this string, if you try to run it, obviously the goal would be to have 27 placed in here to be concatenated together. But if we run it, what we'll get is we'll go ahead and get an error. And what the error is saying is that you can only concatenate a string and not an integer to a string. But to fix this, you can enter the f string. In order to call the f string, all you've got to do is press F, and we're going to go ahead and extend the string. So we'll get rid of the plus, and we'll place curly braces around the integer itself, and then we should be able to go ahead and run this as is. Yep, and then what we get is there are a total of 27 tacos to be eaten. So just something to remember is if you're going to be adding an integer plus a string statement, whatever it might be, you're going to want to go ahead and use the f string to go ahead and call the integer itself, the integer variable. Another thing to remember is that you can use the f string to actually call a mathematical equation within Python. So for example, if you will actually want to call pi within the statement itself, or whatever the math equation might be, you can always do the same thing as you did right here, but with the equation itself. And what we're going to be calling is actually a float type. So if we print the type of pi, just know that this will be a float. And then if we go ahead and run it, what we get is it's the class of float, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to copy this statement, and then we're going to paste it right here. And then instead of age, we're going to go ahead and use just pi. And then we're going to go ahead and run this. And what we should get is pi, which is 3.1458. So just remember that if you are going to be calling an integer of some sort, whether that be a whole number or a fractional number, if you will, just remember that you will need to call the variable with the f string, and the f string is actually an f. So to kind of recap, in order for Python to go ahead and have the variable call a string, what you'll do is you'll assign the variable. The variable can be whatever you want it to be, and as long as you have the equal sign right here, you can always place the string or even an integer, and the string or the integer would then be bound to the variable itself. And likewise, remember that if you start a variable with a lowercase letter like greeting, and you start it with an uppercase letter for this greeting, those two variables are actually two different variables. Finally, you can also concatenate two variables together in order to have a full statement be printed out, as we have right here. And in order to concatenate two strings, you will not actually need to use the f string, but if you want to concatenate a string and an integer, you will need to call the f string. So hopefully this makes a little bit of sense. Please feel free to let me know if you have any questions within the comments below. I'd be happy to go over this video and try to make another one that will maybe be a little more clear in the future. Otherwise, I want to thank you guys for watching. Please feel free to like, subscribe, leave a comment, whatever, and I'll catch you in the next video. Thanks.